G'day traders, welcome to a wrap up of Tuesday 31st of July. So here we are on the daily charts. We've pushed up above this resistance area, so we're in an territory where we haven't been for quite a few months. So definitely the buyers are looking to go higher. Now, as we started this day, we were coming back and putting a little bit of pressure on this area and looking to possibly use it as support. If it starts breaking under there, which you can see it has done now, then it might look to come back and find some sort of support around this region here. Actually, it might even be worth marking it in. You can sort of see there's a bit of a region through there, and that also lines up. You can see this trend line that goes through here. I've continued it as well, so obviously we pushed through, got back above it, and this is relevant to before, so the market's going to keep that in mind. And this trend line is what we call vertical support and resistance, and the fact it's lining up with another support line there shows a bit of an area where the market potentially come down to. So this is just a gauge or a point significant area to look at the market. So as the market's coming down here, what you do is use a bit of a top-down approach. So going, okay, coming down here, knowing that this is an area where there's likely to be buyers, hanging around. Then go to the 5-minute charts or the 1-minute charts and look for some sort of support or formations to signal that you're buying. So you wouldn't just buy there, but you want to see the formations, some sort of rounded bottom or some pressure starting to be formed back to the upside, right on around this region. That's where you can feel confident or have a high probability trade, when you got all sort of those things congruing together and using a bit of a top-down approach. So that's the daily charts. But what I find with the daily charts, sometimes they're a little bit longer term. They're good for a very overall gauge, but that region where it's popping down like this, I really like to result to the 15-minute chart. So it's like a medium-term chart to really link those short-term and long-term charts together and get a lot more of an idea of what we're looking at. So here we go. Here's Tuesday here. So here's the day we're looking at. So obviously, as we're opening up the market, you can see they've tried to push higher. This is all pre-market through here. They've really failed. They're coming down. They pop back up, then they're coming down. So as I'm moving through the day, this sort of stuff you can't see on the daily chart, and you can see we're coming to a support line here, quite significant. The market has been holding. If they get underneath that, that's when they're going to look to drop it. And in the trading room we said if it drops, look for it to come down to 1372 sort of region. And that's exactly where they've headed to now. But once they get under there, what do you got to think? What's the market doing? It's just the buyers looking for a new spot to place their orders before pushing the market up higher. So even though we're very much in an upwards market, these medium-term charts can really give significance to what's happening in the Pacific area. And there's certainly times yesterday where the sellers were very much in control because we're breaking through significant areas, even though we're in a buyer's market. So those medium-term charts do a great job of providing that link between the shorter term and the longer term. So here we are, 5-minute chart first of all. It was an interesting morning. It was one of these ones where it was chopping, or not chopping, but just really bouncing between points within a range. And quite often by the time you hit 11:30, we've well and truly picked a trend. Whereas this particular day, it tried to push down. Well, first of all, this up area here, this kind of looked a little bit convincing, like it might want to bounce and push higher. But all the other markets weren't really going with it at the time. But then so it started pushing down. I think this region here looked like, I believe that the market was going to really push down here and then start breaking through those levels that showed you on the 15-minute chart. From there, it turned around and quickly popped back up to its cash market's highs again, and then it's come down. So it's really obviously bouncing between a range, and then obviously you flip over to the 1-minute chart, and that shows a little bit more detail, and you can kind of get a bit more of an understanding of what's happening within the area. But we're really sticking within this range. Then we got this 5-minute setup here, so you can see the moving average is swinging around to the upside there, and what they're doing is looking for some sort of support to then potentially go higher, and this is where the market looked like it then was starting to form some sort of upward formation. Maybe the trend was going to head on the upside. From there, everything started to turn around, and there's a real turning point within the market just within this region here. We'll probably result to the 1-minute chart for that, but and to give you a bit more of an idea of that. But from there, obviously the pressure changed from not so much, there is upward movement there. You can see the overall direction from 10 o'clock onwards is definitely on the upside, but overall sticking within the range. But then it really picked its trend and away it went and started pushing down. And this is where we started getting down and putting pressure on that support line on the 15-minute charts. It's popped back up. This is a bit of a region for it to potentially hold and go lower. If you look back through here, this is sort of the bottom of this sideways range. So if the downside's strong, it should hold there and then push lower. this particular case, it's popped up again, come to the next sort of resistance level, and then it started to head lower. And from there we've got then you can see this time actually it's popped up and held at that resistance level. So that original resistance level we're expecting it to hold, it's popped up through it, come down. This time it's, and this is real classic head and shoulders formation here, this time it's used that resistance, and then it's really got going on the downside and breaking through those support levels on the 15-minute charts. So I mean, what I'd say about this day overall, as far as the day goes, it's a little bit messy. I guess within trading days, there's some days are cleaner than others, but the market will do what the market wants to do. But if you're incorporating a few different elements, keeping it simple, but not over the top, but incorporating a few things, and some solid elements in trading, I think, is having some longer term perspective, so 15-minute charts, and then keeping a real close eye on support and resistance within the market, so within this day, and then maybe some support and resistance, so some key areas, which you get from the 15-minute chart and say 60-minute chart, some key areas that the market has reacted to previously, and you'll notice that, talking about that, 1380.50, if you go back through the markets, you'll notice the market has reacted to this specific tick for multiple times over the last couple of days. So this is a key area, this is an area that's marked on my chart as a key area. So when you see sort of formation, it comes up again and fails, and you get that rejection off that point, there's a real real evidence that this market could be heading down, especially then when it starts breaking through these levels here. The 15-minute charts suggest that we're definitely going to push down for a little bit. So keeping a few solid areas in your trading bag in regards to helping you understand the market a little bit better is certainly key, but keeping it simple too. Big advocate of that. So here on the 1-minute chart, like I said, we're really bouncing between points here. This area here, I think this had a lot of potential to push down on the downside. You can see it's pushed down, it's come back. Really thought we'd find some sort of resistance here and push lower. The other markets are really starting to push lower. It's believed as an area to really launch itself from, and keeping in mind those 15-minute charts, knowing that there was certainly some, if it could get underneath this sort of 1377 region, then it was going to get a lot of momentum to the downside. Just wasn't quite ready yet, and from there it's got back into its range. This is the area where the 5-minute fade works, so it's found some sort of support here, and then it's able to push back to its highs again. Now this is the area where I talked about before, where there's a real change in the momentum of the market as far as it's concerned now. This region here, is where it's sort of setting up and looking, you're kind of expecting it's coming back, holding off the top of this this range here, and this is an area where it could potentially launch itself to the upside. They're not saying that it was the best buying area, but it's an area where the buyers are setting up. Then also, when you see an area like this start to fail and it gets back underneath that, an area where it really shouldn't come back, if in fact it does want to go higher, then it comes back and gets underneath that point, it's going to get some real momentum and a change to the downside. So I really see this as sort of a reversal pattern. An area that should hold as support in the market gets underneath that, comes back, hits its head on it, and pushes back down further. Then that's a real key that we're going down and look for the other markets to really break in this area as well. And then you've got sort of confirmation that it's on its way down, and there's nothing really stopping it from potentially heading down again. From there, again, we saw it form this sideways region here. This is where it potentially could hold and go down lower again. So again, once it pops out of this range here, it's going to get a little bit of momentum to the upside. But this particular one's a bit different. There's a strong resistance area through here, like we talked about. The lows of this sideways range, once we start getting down here, should really hold and push this market down. That wasn't the case. It's popped back up. Once it's popped up against this area here, then there wasn't a lot from stopping this market from going a bit higher. And you can see it's pushed through a couple of points past that region. But then it's found some resistance here at this key level that I explained before, that the market keeps reacting to over the last few days, and then from there it's pushed down, popped back up. You can see classic head and shoulders there, almost to the tick, where it's used that previous little bit of a shoulder as resistance, and then that's where it started to push lower. And once it broke those levels on the longer term charts, it got a real push down there for a while. So a bit of information there. Certainly, this with trading, that there's a lot to take in. And I guess what I find is, and if there's too much information there, it sometimes can get a bit confusing. So, like today, I've spoken about a lot of things, and they're quite personal to me and how I like to approach the market. So what I'd say is take anything on board and try and learn from it, but personalize it to yourself. That's the most important thing. Doing some reading lately about that, and this particular trader was talking about how to be successful in trading, you really want to take whatever's out there and make it personal to you and make it suitable to you. One thing does not necessarily suit another person. You're always going to be fighting against yourself if it doesn't actually truly sit well with you and the core of you of how you trade. So find a couple of things that really work with you and stick with that, and stick really solid to that, and build some foundation around that. And I think that's the best way to move ahead. Well, that's a wrap up for Tuesday, and we'll speak to you guys on Wednesday.